Our society and our world are full of these invented and built up and contrived facades. And sometimes some people come along with a hammer and smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Welcome to the future. Shit where you please. The Wi-Fi's killer, but there's no more bees. So there's hardly any flowers, there are very few trees, and you'll pay $1,000 for some honey for your tea. But we got these awesome collars, mine's an Apple Model 3. It allows for better movement than the Tesla X Elite. It lets you customize the ads that it implants in every dream. And for premium subscribers, doesn't shock you in your sleep. But it doesn't stop there. It can analyze your speech, and if it hears disinformation, then it notifies police. It's a swift re-education, but it knocks you off your feet like your booster every 7th week. I faced the future boldly with 2 eager open eyes, and I picked a couple nuggets up that blew my fucking mind. Like you can taxidermy someone while they're technically alive, and they'll shine when it's election time. See, the Democratic voter base will pay them zero. Never mind if voting for the scarecrow is a vote along their party lines. They could stare into its marble eyes and claim there's something dignified. Unlike real politicians, this one doesn't need an oxygen or kit supply. But its function is the same as those who came before. The goals are never misaligned. It still spends all its working time performing pre-recorded fleecing sessions where it sugarcoats your slow and hungry genocide, while pouring billions into Nazi coffers, all the while selling you the story that we're moments till the MiGs arrive. So fuck it, ask Zelensky if he'll help replace our leaded pipes. Watch a fleet of Penske's show, stacks of bills in every size. Guess it only took a black sun and a couple hiles. Honorary goose step and some Nazi boots a quarter mile, all while Biden sneers his sordid smile. I don't know what was in this morning's vial, but it makes him stare 1,000 yards through all the prompters and the cards like he can smell the nearest child. His eyes are wide and wild, wider than the grave in which another 1,000 families were tossed in as I typed until they rose up to the sky unceremoniously piled. Which sort of flies right in the face of all this network ticker tape where the American economy has superhuman vitals.
And sometimes some people come along with a hammer.
See, I like to think my trial's gonna play like a recital. I'll denounce the world around me and accuse the most entitled, who weaponize their titles, whose pull is something title, who'd starve us all to death to best delight their blighted idol. So they might destroy the record, and I will never get to vinyl. So my word is not immortal, but it's final.
It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
People, you don't think I see you crying in your cars, but I do. Sometimes I can feel it at a red light, someone at my side trying to muddle through. See them wiping their eyes in the rear view, like black hole sun in the sky. Why the fuck won't you come when I need you? Well, this moment in time is as close as we'll be and as far as I'll meet you. 2 windows in between us, new moon in the house of Venus. One stranger who sees you and reads your features knows that your alibi might be tight, but it's not quite leak-proof. So if you're sitting at the light and you're crying in your car, just know that I see you. And it's a 50-50 that I'm bloodshot, gun shy, once bitten, twice tried, ribs pried wide to the sky till I'm see-through.
That's you, in case you don't recognize yourself.
think I see you struggling to breathe, but I do. I see you stumble in your everyday grief like I do. I try, but I do. I'm twice bitten too. My mind's split in two. My knuckles bright white from the 10 to the 2. And the song in my head is the theme for a fugue. A state of decay through the filter of corporate news, where they edit the grays and the blues. They whitewash the brown till they drown out the natural hues. And then it's just another fact to refuse, that the corporate ladders for hanging the company noose. Consider it one of your perks, after all it's communal in use. So you can come and hang till your legs go limp and they're shaking you loose. Now you watch 5 co-workers opt for the alternate exit, neatly suspended above where you wolf down your food. And your company gets its incentives embellished by harping on wellness, suggesting you'd best take time for your mental health after your 14 hours are through. Like we gave you a bottle to piss in and fixed up a noose on the crossbeam. Christ, what more can we do? So if you struggle to breathe any moment that you aren't asleep, then remember, most of Americans fear for their savings, fear for their shelter, fear for their babies. You aren't the fringe of exception, but rather a perfect example of capital's rule. And you're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. You're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. I see you crying in your cars, but I do. You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? Now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen? What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? Man, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause, now that I can see the cause so clearly. I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me. I will pick my targets and assassinate them lyrically. I will bring them out into the town square, hook them to the pillory and leave them there. Hillary, I'll see you there. Hillary, I'll see you there. You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? Now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen? Welcome to the fantasy of rhetoric. Welcome to the last of the free speech while we can get it. And I promise you can get it. All you corporate Democrats, second wave Confederates, GOP illusionists, and neo-Nazi bureaucrats. And Stephen fucking Miller, I will see you in the aftermath. When all the laws are dust, there's just moral justice after that. And I will hunt you through the wasteland if it comes to that. So I can rub you in the dirt like a cheap human Brillo pad. I can sleep fine when our beds are burning, Stephen, but I'll turn around and run into the blaze to get my pillow back. As long as I can lay my head down, I can live with that. I can deal with a little ash. I can feel like a little of the old me burn with the bed and the rest of my past. The old world where we all lived and we can't get back. The old world where you didn't give and you'd still get back. Where you could rake in 12 billion and give none back. Those days are behind us, the virus will kill all that. Your wealth is behind us and kindness is meant for the past. Our leaders would bind us and starve us and call it a fast. A sacrament meant for their God that they garnish in cash. And they feed it the poor by the hundreds, that's all that it asks. Its hunger is legion and people in need are all it will have. So our only chance is to starve it and hope that it turns on them.
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your hands. Can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your hands.
Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust? Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
The last track, I think I only blinked once. I skipped lunch. Blinked twice. Christ, shut your eyes. Now open wide. Fascists took the nation and inflation took a supersize. It's sad to say your teachers couldn't quite make the ends collide. But now you'll probably get to see them on the weekends doing Uber drives. Say lube it with a little oil. One, it tastes expensive too. You'd be surprised how well it helps you open up your throat so you consume the lie of human rights that was sold to you by suits and ties, designer scents on plastic men with patient fangs and ancient vice. You know, the kind of greed that makes a person lose the sight.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Hi, everybody. What's up? It's How Do We Miss That? Sorry, Substack. It's not boat smashing into other boats yet. That'll be at midnight, and it'll say, How do we miss that? Because I reversed the RTMPs. Good job, Indy. Ricky move, Ricky move. What's happening, everyone?
Ricky.
We are here. Yeah, Ricky. The Licky Leaks Ricky guy. We're here to do a show. And we're not going to talk about anybody getting anything that they were getting that was announced today, because we're not here to talk about the duopoly and their crap and
oh no,
the Democratic
Biden got
Party.
cancer.
Oh, no. Anyway. Oh, now I got to cut off his mic. See, I told him I was going to cut it off if he said that.
Oh right. No, anyway.
Yeah. It's been a week for sure. Damn, dude, what they're doing in Gaza is just fucking horrible, and they're putting it right in our face. And they don't give a flying fuck who knows it, and they know nothing's gonna stop them, and it's just awful.
Yep.
Other than that, I had a great conversation with 7Cs the other day, and that went live last night. I hope everybody checked that out and watched. It was good times. We are live like everywhere as usual. Ghost Art is over on Rumble. Good to see you over there. We're live on Kick, even though nobody goes over to Kick for whatever reason. Sean will go over there and say hi, and then he'll come back to YouTube. We got the Discord chat going on. We're live at indienewsnow.com/live. We're live over there. YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute.
We'll do it live.
You know it. And, of course, Substack over at INNnewsletter.com is where this one is. Tonight, Boats will be over at Indie Media Today. So, yeah, I've been curating stories. And, again, I had so much shit to bring. I want to get right to it because there is a lot. But before we do, we want to ask people to fund the media that they want to see because there's a lot of shitty media out there and there's a lot of people that aren't doing... they're covering drama and they're covering this one said this about this one and this one, and that's very nice for you guys, but like there's a lot of shit happening, so we're here to talk about that. The ways to support this independent channel, because we are demonetized on YouTube, are by supporting us with a contribution at Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, INNnewsletter.com, IndieMediaToday.com are the newsletters in order to do that there. Really appreciate all the support. It is critical, and independent media is under assault. We're going to talk about that tonight. One of the ways they do that is they come after the funding, which is one of the reasons why I like to separate our funding from a platform. Because if they decide to kick you off the platform, you don't lose your funding source potentially, number one. You also, the way that we have it worked out, we will be able to reach out to our subscriber base and let them know. And I wrote an article about how we can, kind of combat that too. So again, really appreciate all the support. The people that were highlighted there are the ones that support regularly and all the time. And we love them for that too. Okay. We're going to start off with a story about water. Actually, water. What? Water. That's not supposed to show my tabs. What's going on here? Okay, anyway. Water. So, EPA reverses course, drops limits on 3 dangerous fire retardant chemicals. Yay! Let's get forever chemicals back in our drinking water. Okay, so this is out of Sludge, and I've got a few Sludge stories tonight. Sludge has been doing some killer work lately. Donald Shaw. All right. In a win for chemical companies like Chemours and 3M, the EPA has scrapped Biden administration rules targeting 3 toxic PFAS chemicals in drinking water, despite their links to cancer and immune system harm. That's not good. All right. Erin Brockovich, I remember, celebrated this when they passed it. This is bad. Echoing the demands of chemical industry lobbyists, Trump administration has moved to weaken Biden-era drinking water protections by halting regulations on 3 toxic forever chemicals linked to cancer, liver damage, and immune dysfunction. Why? Well, because they just want to undo everything that's already being done. The Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, of course, announced today that it will rescind drinking water regulations on 3 widely used per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which are called PFAS, all right, along with a hazard index approach that treats them as a cumulative health threat when found together. So the cumulative effect can be worse and can certainly be cancerous, and they don't want us looking at that because, of course, they're there to protect their corporate buddies and their. This is straight corporate cronyism. Who's running the EPA right now? I'm not really sure. They'll probably mention the head of the EPA that Trump named here. But these fire retardant chemicals, which are used in everything from nonstick cookware to waterproof clothing and grease-proof food. Zeldin. Oh, okay. Yeah. The douchebag from New York. A Zionist from New York. What a surprise. Who was in Congress for years out of Long Island. He's a total asshole. All right.
Long Island.
Grease-proof food packaging are part of it. He ran for governor of New York and lost, I remember, too. Part of a class known as Forever Chemicals.
Long Island grease-proof.
Yeah, well, he's not grease-proof. He's full of grease. All right. Or their long-lasting... All right, they're known as Forever Chemicals for their long-lasting environmental impact and their resistance to breaking down the human body. Thanks. The chemicals have been found in tap water across the country and in the blood of 98% of Americans, so nothing that we need to worry about or anything. Scientific studies have linked exposure to elevated risks of kidney and testicular cancer, reproductive harm, metabolic disorders, and immune system suppression. Nothing to worry about there. Man, again, this is to protect against the lawsuits, honestly, because the minute that 98% of the country knows that they were poisoned with cancerous chemicals, they will start to try to sue. And this is meant to head off the lawsuit, because people will start to realize, oh, if we take the chemicals out, people will stop getting sick. And then the people who were getting sick will realize that this is what was making them sick and sue us for that. That's what all of this is. We don't have
time for rational solutions.
This is all to avoid litigation. The decision is a sharp reversal from the Biden admin's regulations finalized a year ago, which included these substances alongside the better-known PFOA and PFOS, which will remain regulated. Well, at least they're doing something. Thanks.
Yeah.
The move follows years of lobbying and litigation threats from trade groups of chemical manufacturers, like we said, such as Chemours, 3M, and DuPont, which have been tied to widespread PFAS contamination. Of course, follow the money, which is what sludge does an excellent job of doing. Right? In its announcement, the EPA said it was rescinding regulation of those substances to ensure its determinations follow the legal process laid out in the Safe Drinking Water Act. It's the same argument the chemical companies used when they were fighting the Biden regulations. But now they have a friendly, a more corporate-friendly president, unbelievably enough.
Yeah.
All right? Totally open to bribes. All they have to do is buy some Trump shitcoin, and he'll let them do whatever the fuck they want. For example, in a May 2023 regulatory filing, Gen X maker Chemours argued that the EPA's proposed regulation of the chemicals violates the Safe Drinking Water Act by illegally regulating mixtures without statutory authority and bypassing its requirement that decisions regulate a containment are based on occurrence data. Well, you can't measure it, so it didn't occur. Like what?
Yeah.
Public health advocates warn that removing these chemicals from the regulations leaves millions of Americans at continued risk. No surprise. The PFAS contamination crisis is much larger than just two chemicals, and there's increasing evidence that other fire-retardant chemicals that pollute water harm health. Okay? Eliminating all PFAS chemicals from drinking water is an urgent public health priority. Sludge is $5 a month. It is one of the better outlets right now that's out there following what the hell's happening and holding people accountable. It's two guys. It's Donald Shaw and David Moore. And we're going to bring an article from David Moore later on tonight. So kudos to Sludge for staying on fire retardant chemicals. They're also doing good work on the crypto industry. They're one of the better ones out there, and for two dudes, and they're like they're a nonprofit, like legit registered nonprofit with no corporate funding whatsoever. So they are able to follow the money. Somebody we haven't shown in a while is Erin Brockovich. You may know who Erin Brockovich is, and she's actually going to talk here a little bit about Kansas. All right, which is where she's from, and she's going to talk a little bit about the movie that she's in, and then I'm going to bring another Erin Brockovich story, which is twice as horrifying as this one, amazingly enough. All right, so this story is about we're not in Kansas anymore. She says, as many of you know, I grew up in Kansas, and the land of sprawling wheat fields and bright yellow sunflowers. My family lived in Lawrence, just a few hours north of Wichita. I have a friend who lives there. He says they call it Wichita. All right, the state's most populous city. So she recently got a note from Sarah in Wichita saying, thank you for writing Superman's Not Coming. You encouraged and inspired me to keep pushing this issue. We successfully filed a class action lawsuit against Textron Aviation last week, and the local news has covered it heavily. What happened? Up to 300 homes in East Wichita sit above a toxic plume of chemicals, putting their health at risk and damaging their property values, according to attorneys representing the group. While everyone else is talking about the possibility of Trump accepting a luxury jet from Qatar, let's talk about the aviation industry and its impact on Sarah and her neighbors in Kansas, because this story is all too American. First, did you know that Wichita is even considered the air capital of the world? I certainly did not. So she gives a little history of Wichita, the Wright brothers' first flight, and why all these different organizations set up shop there. All right. The Textron Bell flight, which is Cessna Beechcraft, Bombardier Learjet, Spirit Aero Systems, which is now famously part of Boeing, and Airbus. They all have stuff set up there. So she goes back into her history. In the early 90s, for those who haven't watched the movie and those who aren't older like me, Erin Brockovich was working in Hinckley, California, discovering that a carcinogen called hexavalent chromium, which is also known as chromium-6, had contaminated the water in town, leading to a years-long environmental investigation and lawsuit that would eventually turn into a movie titled Erin Brockovich. She thought Hinckley was a one-off incident initially, but she soon started to learn that there were Hinkleys everywhere. And she even says that at the end. She says, "I'm fighting now for Kettleman," which is 10 times the settlement. Julia Roberts played her. She's an ex-beauty queen. As our manufacturing industries were building their companies and profits in small towns and cities throughout the country, the contamination of our soil and drinking water began to rise with their toxic chemical leftovers. Why does all of this matter? So she says, starting in the 1990s, TCE, which is a colorless, non-flammable liquid solvent, was used in both industrial and household items and became a popular metal degreasing agent. Said in a different way, manufacturers used it to remove grease and dirt from metal parts. It was a favorite in the aircraft industry, right? Most people get exposed to TCE by consuming contaminated drinking water. The water becomes contaminated from some combination of industry discharge or spills and existing hazardous waste sites. TCE breaks down slowly like a forever chemical and can move through soil to find its way into drinking water sources. So they need to have a separate barrier, I'm sure. TCE is a known human carcinogen, and prolonged or repeated exposure can cause kidney cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, or liver cancer. It also can cause damage to the central nervous system, liver, kidneys, immune system, reproductive organs, and fetal heart defects. So it's fucking bad. And it's still a problem. Last December 2024, the EPA issued a final rule regarding TCE, which bans the manufacture, including import, processing, and distribution in commerce of TCE for all uses, including airplane degreasing. But the EPA has received multiple petitions for review of the final rule. Also, due to a January 20th memo from Trump entitled, quote, "Regulatory freeze pending review," unquote, the EPA temporarily delayed the effective date of the rule, so we're not in the clear yet. So this fucking damaging, deadly chemical is still legal for them to use and contaminate right now. So she says, let's get back to Kansas. In the early 90s, defense contractor Raytheon, then owner of an aviation plant in Wichita, discovered solvent contamination in the soil and groundwater. And this goes a little down a rabbit hole, right? The solvents were tracked back to 3 buildings on the campus where employees used equipment like vapor degreasers to clean and prepare metal for manufacturing. Makes sense. The chemicals seeped into the groundwater, creating a chemical plume that started at the plant and flowed outward because they didn't protect soil under the land and put vapor barriers and stuff. Among the chemicals discovered in the plume, TCE. The plume now stretches beyond the plant property. Now neighbors of the plant are launching a class action lawsuit. The Kansas Department of Health and Environment monitors the situation and has designated the area as the Textron Aviation Site. Let's get clear. The groundwater contamination gets discovered in 1993. The levels in the groundwater below the facility are up to 20,000 times higher than safe levels, according to facility reports. The facility themselves admits this. But in 2007, Raytheon is sold to Hawker Beechcraft Corporation, which then declares bankruptcy in 2012 Emerging from bankruptcy in 2013 as Beechcraft Corp Textron Inc. then purchases the facility and is now known as Textron Aviation. So it goes through, she says, now this year in 2025, neighbors filed a lawsuit more than 30 years later, and people are still trying to get this one manufacturing plant site to clean up its mess. She says, I mentioned this company Hot Potato because it's one of the ways that corporations shirk environmental responsibility. Companies move on, whether they declare bankruptcy, spin off into a new organization, or move locations while the contamination stays put or grows. People pick a neighborhood to live in because it's quiet, it has tree-lined streets, or it feels like a nice place for their kids to ride their bikes. They don't think about whether a chemical plume will go unnoticed for years and then potentially cause their whole family to get sick or their property values to plummet. Environmental pollution is not easy to detect or prove. It's part of why regulating industry can be so difficult. It takes years to build scientific case to prove the harmful effects certain chemicals have on our health. Many toxic chemicals have latency periods of 10, 20, 30 years. But bad players need to be called out and dots need to be connected. And I love that she's not pulling any punches, but this affects every one of us. We all need to drink clean water. Throughout the 1990s, Raytheon bought out companies and inherited environmental headaches as they discovered that chemicals used by those companies had seeped into the soil and groundwater, according to the Tampa Bay Times. But that's obvious. In 2008, the paper reported that more than 90 federal lawsuits sought to make Raytheon pay for removing or cleaning up tainted soil. Residents in the Azalea neighborhood in St. Petersburg sought legal help back then to help get a cleanup. All right. As soon as they found out the company was running remediation programs in 45 locations, which cost them about $149 million, according to company reports, something very similar happened in Arizona. Hughes Aircraft opened a manufacturing plant in Tucson in 1950, using chemicals like TCE to degrease metal parts. Let's just assume at the time that people didn't know it might cause cancer. Time goes on, chemicals leak into the soil, and the contamination spreads. In 1978, water pollution turns up in residents' private wells, which is often where we find these toxic chemicals. By 81, an unusual cluster of health problems, including cancer, sprout up near the plant. Again, 31 years from when they first opened the plant. The site goes on the EPA's Superfund list in 1983, meaning it's a designated a cleanup site. By 91, right. Hughes settles a class action lawsuit for $84.5 million. Raytheon buys the plant in the mid-90s, knowing the pollution is still there. And then in 2006, the EPA finds that Raytheon's cleanup facility has been allowing unsafe levels of TCE in the water being used by 50,000 Tucson residents. No big deal, right? And the cycle continues.
Yeah, seems fine.
Let's get back to Florida. In 2023, city leaders in St. Pete approved a new condo project with 1,000 homes at the old Raytheon site in the Azalea neighborhood. We continue to build on homes on documented toxic sites. What the fuck? Like we're out of space. Residents signed a petition in opposition to the new development, and it gained more than 1,500 signatures before the city council meeting. And what's going to happen is people are going to move in there from out of town that won't know about what happened there.
Yeah.
Why don't we listen to the people? We know housing is another huge issue in this country, but no one wants to live at a toxic waste site. What is a plume? It is a contaminated groundwater plume. A contaminated groundwater plume exists when hazardous substances, pollutants, or contaminants are present within an aquifer system. A plume of contaminated groundwater may be formed when substances are released to groundwater from a source at a facility. The contaminated plume can spread horizontally, vertically, and transversely through the aquifer system, by means of infiltration, migration, inter-aquifer exchange, and interaction with surface water. Again, she's done her homework on this shit. Right, aquifer. Sorry.
Yeah.
She knows her shit. She's not like sounding the alarm bell for no reason. She says, my biggest hope is that our communities can find relief. In Kansas, in Florida, in Arizona, everywhere. We need better technologies to help us remediate contaminated sites. We need private industry, usually the polluters, to foot the bill, not their neighbors. Remember, we fund the EPA with our tax dollars. Well, the government funds the EPA if you ask the MMT people. And Trump's going to say nobody funds the EPA if you ask him. These companies post billion-dollar profits while people suffer. Yes, it's time for a change. It starts with more communities understanding that they're not alone in these toxic incidents and starting to sue the companies more. Class action lawsuits. But they're expensive, they take a long time, and people suffer and die in the process. It sucks. Again, theBrockovichReport.com. Erin's actually been going live once a week lately. Definitely support her. But I'm not done with her here because she wrote this one. Oh, my God. It's a literal shit show. Manure is triggering drinking water issues, and more than 122 million Americans are at risk. So nothing to see here. Please disperse. This one's wow. All right. She says water contamination comes from many sources, including industrial discharges, agricultural runoff, and inadequate sewage treatment. Now a new analysis shows troubling levels of cancer-causing disinfection byproducts in the drinking water of more than 122 million people living in the United States. No big deal. Don't regulate your industry, folks. Deregulation is a good thing, right? Just ask any libertarian, they'll tell you. Sorry to poke fun at my libertarian brothers and sisters. One of the biggest sources of this problem is organic materials such as manure runoff from livestock factory farming operations is reacting with the disinfectants used to treat public drinking water systems and creating these dangerous byproducts. Gross. U.S. factory farms produce 941 billion pounds of shit each year. Double the weight in human sewage produced by the entire U.S. population, according to a report last year. She's covered DPBs before, but the news here is that organic material, and specifically manure, has become a big problem for our drinking water. Not good. Not good. Let's talk about how this happens and how you can protect yourself. So what I like about her is she doesn't just sound the alarm bell, but she actually gives you some simple solutions. All right. Drinking water comes from many natural water sources, of course, such as lakes, rivers, and streams, and it generally contains organic matter, leaves, dirt, fish excrement, and so on. Adding chlorine, which is a disinfectant to water, is one of the primary water treatment methods that we've used because it's highly effective at killing most potentially harmful organisms, such as bacteria, viruses, and parasites. Basic shit, folks. Filter your water.
Yep.
It's done a really good job of preventing disease. In fact, before chlorination, typhoid, cholera, dysentery, and diarrhea outbreaks were common in cities around the world. Treating the water helped reduce these health problems, but with treatment advances also came potential side effects. In 1974, scientists discovered that chlorine itself could react with naturally occurring materials in the water to create these DPBs, substances that form when the disinfectant reacts with natural compounds in the water. Sadly, many of these have been shown to cause cancer, including THMs, or referred to as TTHMs, which are a group of chemical compounds.
Trihalomethanes.
Those two. In the last 40 years, we discovered more than 600 other DPBs in chlorinated tap water, including haloacetic acids, HAAs. Ha! That's jokes on us. If you look at your water quality report or you look up your water system at EWG's tap water database, it's free. Just enter your zip code. you'll be horrified to see THMs or HAs listed. Or you might see one of the 4 chemicals in the total trihalomethanes group, chloroform, the
bromidichloromethane,
bromodichloromethane, dibromochloromethane, and
bromoform.
Bromoform. That sounds like it's right at South Park. Bromoform.
Yeah.
So what it uncovered was that nationwide test results from 2019 to 23 found that nearly 6,000 community water systems across 49 states and DC had at least one instance of unsafe levels of THMs. Awesome.
What?
These toxic chemicals, linked to increased risks of bladder and colorectal cancer, as well as birth defects, are a direct result of the interaction between disinfectants and organic pollutants flowing into drinking water. Again, all of this stuff just makes logical sense. This is a wake-up call. Yes, thank you from the Environmental Working Group's Midwest Director. Manure from factory farms is polluting our water supplies, and when utilities try to make that water safe to drink, they unintentionally create another public health hazard that increases the risk of cancer and birth defects. That is really your thesis right there.
And I'm sure farm runoff, same problem.
Right, but the factory farming where they're doing it at such mass scale is where you've got the problem.
Yes.
Farm runoff is one thing, that can be dealt with by chemicals. Right. So there's a graphic that kind of here's like a nice long infographic that she can share, how it becomes toxic chemicals that end up in our drinking water.
Right.
Right. So there's a lot more here. What can we do? I know learning about DBPs and MCLs is not always top of mind, but it's so important to stay educated on what's happening with our water. Water emergencies turn into health emergencies. And you should be filtering your water separate, possibly in addition from the tap, for sure. All right?
You're learning so many important things.
I'm proud of you.
And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. If manure is contributing to this issue, then it seems like the next step is to reduce the amount of livestock manure and large-scale animal operations that gets into drinking water sources. Right? I feel like that's the Natalie Portman Star Wars meme right there. So we're going to do that, right? Research shows...
we don't have time for rational solutions.
Right. Research shows that the ways that farms manage animal waste do not protect water sources from the waste pollution. Current regulations that require the largest animal factories to discharge and manage manure in certain ways do not adequately protect water. Nice. Perfect. I don't see any issue there. Particularly in rural areas, we need to turn up efforts to prevent manure from getting into sources of drinking water, to help reduce the amount of disinfection byproduct levels. That would be nice. Currently, the EPA, led by New York douchebag ex-Congressman Lee Zeldin, the EPA requires manure management plans only from the largest farms, which make up just 2% of all animal feeding operations. So we're really attacking the problem by going after 2% of the problem. Minnesota has a buffer law which requires grasses or shrubs to be grown in a permanent buffer up to 50 feet wide between a farm field and a body of water, which helps reduce runoff. Sounds like a great strategy that more states could potentially learn from. Maybe, if it works. The 2022 IRA began to send more money to farmers for conservation practices until the current administration started to freeze a lot of that IRA conservation funding. Thanks a lot, Trump. Billions of dollars have been cut off, or actually that's more probably Doge than the Trump administration, but funds for farmers to implement conservation practices, some of which could help reduce manure runoff. I don't know how much actually would. Water treatment systems also can help. Using treatments like enhanced coagulation, granular activated carbon, or nanofiltration to remove organic matter from water before it's disinfected can also help reduce the formation of disinfection byproducts, including those TTHMs. The issue here is also about money. The money, Lebowski. Right? At home, using activated carbon or reverse osmosis filtration systems tend to be the best defense against DPBs. You know, I see a lot about Zero Water. The product Zero Water apparently does a very good job. To see a map of all community water systems in the U.S. that provide drinking water for more than 3,300 people, where at least one test contained TTHMs or the MCL of 80 parts per billion, she's got a link for that there. There's also an interactive map created by the National Environmental Group Food and Water Watch that shows a comprehensive picture of factory farm domination in America. Factory farm domination that only makes up 2%, or at least the ones that are large enough to be regulated only make up 2%. The resource, which is based on the USDA Census of Agriculture, includes density rankings that reveal the extreme concentration of factory farms and their waste in communities across the country. See, I would have figured it would just be in the Midwest. If we want clean water, we must look at all the ways that our water systems are challenged and be willing to course correct with proper resources. This almost makes me think of like the Man Bear Pig episode of Super Serial, guys, you know, where he's in his presentation, in his slideshow. I remember this, like to the early 2000s. He talked about how you have to attack the environmental problem stages at a time, and he was carbon sequestration and restoration of this and regulations to this. And we're going to have to add our way into it because any one thing isn't going to do it and isn't going to be enough, which I agree with. All right, so Erin Brockovich, the Brockovich Report, fantastic. TheBrockovichReport.com. Suzanne Boothby also writes over there with her. She's been with her since the day she started it. And I believe the very first episode of How Do We Miss That, we covered an Erin Brockovich story. We've been following and supporting her Substack effort since 2021. We will not be remonetized for doing a story like that. Water ain't sexy. It's not sexy. Oh, you got to get that on the soundboard. I want that on the side. I just pointed to Reefy, though nobody can see that.
No.
It's not sexy.
Nope.
Yeah. So, not my cow. I don't know. They're talking about their moo cows, and somebody has a cow. That's awesome.
Ask them.
Ask them. Ask who? So,
ask them.
No, I don't want to ask them. I don't want her to ask anyone.
Journalists, ask them the question.
We will, the way to monetize and support INN, journalists who will ask them the question. Cash App, $, Indie News Network, Ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, PayPal.me/Indie News Network, INNnewsletter.com, and at IndieMediaToday.com as well. Let's go back here.
Money, please.
One more thing, that these highlighted names are the ones that regularly give and subscribe and support, and those are like the top of the leaderboard for our supporters. So we want to do a little something extra for those folks. So thank you, really. That went a little longer than I was hoping because we've got a long strap in, everyone. It's going to be a long fuck Israel segment this week. And it's not going to be a fun one. I'm sorry, because fuck Israel, and this is what they do. So I'm sorry if you're new here and you are an Israel supporter, you might want to check out, or you might want to stay and listen to what this Jew has to say about it. The Jewish army, no, the Zionist army, sorry.
Rapscallion?
No, the Christian and Jewish Zionist army and Arab Zionist army shot and killed a 12-year-old boy, Mohammed Bardawil, a key eyewitness to the paramedic massacre investigation. Mohammed was the sole survivor witness to the presence of Major Nikolai Ashurov and Israeli tanks during the execution of UN staff member Mr. Shatut. They executed this boy, 12 years old. Fuck Israel. That's where we're going to start. Next, I want to give a big shout out to UN Special Rapporteur on what's her title?
Albanese.
Yeah, on genocide. Francesca Albanese.
Yeah.
She says, as massacres and escalations and survivors dwindle, as massacres in Gaza escalate and survivors dwindle, I've made a decision. I will walk out of interviews that ask if I believe the figures from Gaza, as if incinerated children require proof and their numbers mattered. Also, if scores of journalists were murdered, who's left to independently verify? Oh yeah, also if they bombed every hospital and destroyed the Gaza Health Ministry, how the hell are they supposed to have any kind of count? Asking such questions is not journalism.
Direction you can fuck.
Yep. Off. Yeah, that's right. Asking such questions is not journalism. It's armchair ideology in a flak jacket. Amen, Francesca Albanese. Support, and she's always under attack by the Zionists, so support her. That's why I hadn't pulled the browser up. This one I didn't see anywhere else but Dan Cohen so far. The Israel Defense Magazine confirms that Israel is attacking Gaza with a new and unknown weapon system called Zikit 3. Markings were published indicating it's part of an advanced system, possibly originating from a missile, guided bomb, or unmanned aerial vehicle. Gaza is a laboratory for genocide, exported around the world as quote-unquote battle-tested. And I'll try to blow this up. I don't know if I can. No, I can't. I'll read it out. In photos published on social media in the Gaza Strip, a metallic component was seen among the rubble of a bombed building, bearing markings that indicate a direct connection to the Israeli Air Force. The component, which appears relatively intact, has an identification plate that includes manufacturer details, a serial number, and an internal Israeli Air Force number, and a production date. On the plate, the name Zikit 3, which is chameleon, is inscribed, along with the part number, serial number. I don't need that data. This is a recently
manufactured. On there?
No, the production date though was February of 2025. This is a recently manufactured component, which was likely used in an airstrike within Gaza, within the Strip. The images published by a local blogger named Hamza Al-Masri show the component lying among broken concrete, stones, and electrical wires, illuminated by a flashlight at the site of the destruction. In one image, the identification plate is clearly visible. In another, the metallic body itself is shown, gray in color and resembling part of a guidance or stabilization system for a precision weapon. Again, this is from the Israeli Defense Magazine themselves. The component's name is not known as part of any previously reported weapon system. At this stage, no official response has been issued by the IOF spokesperson or any Israeli security officials. The fact that this production date is February of 2025 indicates that it's a relatively new weapon manufactured this year. Its discovery in the Gaza Strip suggests it was used operationally in recent months. The component bears markings indicating it is part of an advanced system, possibly originating, like you said, from a missile-guided bomb or UAV, which is a drone. This clearly legible identification details preserved on the component allow for a direct connection to the Israeli Air Force, as indicated by the internal number, because they use IAF number on the stamping. The presence of such a component in Gaza provides the first visual documentation of an Israeli weapon previously unknown to the public, which was likely used in the most recent strikes in the area. Thanks, guys.
Inconceivable.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate all that money, funding, and weaponry you're providing to these motherfuckers to commit genocide.
Serenity now!
Next, we got a Dave DeCamp article out of Anti-War. Israelis, and this was May 15th. So this was already 3 days ago. And they pounded the Gaza Strip nonstop for 3 days. And I'm going to report on that and bring stuff more about this. The Israeli military has intensified its attacks on Gaza amid President Trump's visit to the region. What a surprise. At least 100. Yeah, they played head fake. All right, again, at least 143 Palestinians were killed by Israeli attacks in Gaza on Thursday, Al Jazeera reported, as the Israeli military has intensified its strikes on the besieged territory amid Trump's visit to the region. At least 16 more have been killed early Friday morning, Gaza time, as Israel continues to ramp up attacks, suggesting the Israeli military has started the next phase of its genocidal war. Yes. And then they're going to follow up with a ground invasion, allegedly. Health officials told Al Jazeera at least 61 killed in a barrage of attacks in Khan Yunis. Heavy Israeli strikes were also reported in Jabalia, northern Gaza, for the second day. They just hit the whole area. According to the Palestinian news agency Wafa, at least 15, including 11 children and 1 woman, were killed by the strikes in Jabalia. Photos and videos from Gaza on Thursday show many children among the casualties. Yeah. Wafa also reported that among those killed in Khan Yunis was a journalist named Ahmad al-Halou. Based on a previous report from Wafa, al-Halou's killing brings the total number of journalists then, by Thursday, killed to 213. We're up to 222 today. Gaza's health ministry said Thursday that the European hospital in Khan Yunis was out of service due to a recent Israeli attack, which targeted the outside of the facility with bunker-busting bombs. Because, sure, they need to build the Ben Gurion Canal one way or another, right? The Israeli military claimed it targeted an underground Hamas command and control center, but, of course, provided no evidence. We made it up. Secret tunnel. And an analysis from Sky News contradicted the claim. Quote, the attack caused significant damage to the infrastructure, including sewage lines, damage to internal departments, and destruction of the roads leading to the hospital. Exactly Israel's intent, the health ministry wrote on Telegram. According to Al Jazeera, Israeli attacks on Thursday also targeted the Al-Wada hospital in Jabalia and the Indonesian hospital in Khan Yunis. Internationals, they don't give a fuck. If you're trying to patch up any Palestinians, they're trying to kill you. The latest violence in Gaza comes as Israel continues to maintain a total blockade on the Strip, blocking all goods from entering, regardless of what all these Zionist fucking liars say. Okay, Dave has it right, which has been imposed since March 2nd. The World Health Organization said Tuesday that 57 children have starved to death since the blockade was imposed. You're going on almost 100 days of absolute siege. Nothing in. This came from Mahmoud Bassam also on Thursday evening. The bombing on the Gaza Strip has been ongoing for 3 hours without pause, with unprecedented intensity, as if it's the first day of the war. Explosions shake the ground, smoke fills the sky, and the scene brings back memories of those early days we thought had passed. Gaza's bleeding once again, and the world continues to merely watch. It's disgraceful. Ghost Art says 500 slaughtered the last 72 hours. Here's Mondo Weiss, and this was
mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
This was Friday morning at 11:15. Israel has killed more than 250 Palestinians in Gaza in 48 hours. Oh. And then they're going to claim, well, that's not genocide because it's only 250 people. These motherfuckers. Well, they're adding to their numbers, right? As we're dropping bombs on them and making them run for their fucking lives. This was this morning. 5 journalists, 3 along with their families, have been killed in an Israeli bombing of Gaza since midnight. May their memories be a blessing. That was this morning. Yeah. Yeah. This clown, an innocent mother and her 2 babies killed by Gaza terrorists. There are no... What? Where? They're all running for their lives.
Is a mockery of morality.
I'll take shit that never happened for 1,000, Alex. Get the fuck out of here. They don't even allow them to mourn their fucking dead in peace. Look what they did to Shireen's fucking funeral.
Abu Akleh. Yeah. I remember. We covered that.
Yeah, we did.
Which was fucking wild.
Well, we covered that on KRTD. If you remember back in those days, that was May of 2021. I think it was May of 2021.
I think that was on our channel.
Was it? I thought it was before that. I could be wrong, but maybe when they bombed the AP building, and that was 21, May of 21.
Mm-hmm.
But this channel didn't start until November of 21. Issa Amro, we covered a couple weeks ago how the IDF stood by while his neighbors, or while the Israeli settlers that are taking over the West Bank, destroying land and taking over houses, were fucking with him and cut up his tree and stole his tools. Well, they've been ramping up their attacks. All right. So he posted this, that last night the Israeli settlers attacked my house with stones. They came at 4 a.m. to throw stones. Wait, I thought throwing stones was like an offense worthy of putting people in jail for 10 years, because that's what they do to the
or worse.
The Palestinians.
No, it allows you to kill children. If children throw stones at you, you're allowed to shoot them. That's what happens in this country. So, are they burning a cross on this dude's front lawn? Is that what's happening?
Effectively, no. Well, it might as well be. No, they're setting his tree on fire, his land on fire. He says, last night, Israeli settlers attacked my house with stones. They came at 4 a.m. to throw stones and make fire on my family land, chanting about the death of my brother and wishing that I will die or be killed too. Before that, Israeli army came to make sure that I'm alone in the house. It's the reality of the Israeli occupation and apartheid. So let's listen to these motherfucking jerk-offs and listen. Children, these are children at 4 o'clock in the morning setting fire to this guy's land. And listen to this. This is indoctrination. These children were brainwashed from birth.
Cult shit.
Yes, the soldiers were there to protect the settlers. That's right, Desert Mantis. Wow, we got a super chat? Oh my God. Stephen R., thank you.
$100 from Stephen R., appreciate you.
Damn, bro. Many self-claimed
Although
leftists
YouTube's cut.
Promote every fake tension between Trump and Netanyahu as if it's even real. Easier to put your legs up and stop protesting if you pretend that Trump... I don't know what. Cut off there. That Trump is fighting anything or is gonna... wasn't a tool.
Yeah.
They're like using it. It's you should die is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen. Really appreciate you.
Appreciate you, fam.
Oh. So this is what Issa's dealing with at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it just goes on and on and on. And the IDF is standing there watching these kids do this and protecting them to make sure that, heaven forbid, he came out to try. Now, first of all, there are 20 of them. They would just start throwing rocks at him, and he'd end up in the hospital. So he's staying inside. They're breaking his windows. They're setting fire to his land. This has 1 million views. Thankfully.
The Nazis changed, but they never went away.
Eva Bartlett, I'm glad you're okay, Issa, but damn, they are hideous. Yeah, they certainly are. But it's not done there. Here's the head fake.
Posted something else about it, if I can find it.
Here's the head fake about Trump's personal negotiator, Steve Witkoff, told mediators the U.S. isn't going to force Israel to end the Gaza slaughter, even after they got the American kid out, who certainly looks a lot healthier than a lot of the people that have been let out of the Israeli prisons, let me tell you. They won't let him speak, from what I understand. What a surprise. U.S. won't force Israel to end the Gaza slaughter. Netanyahu is refusing to end his genocidal war and has vowed it will continue even if more hostages are released. Another Dave DeCamp. Dave DeCamp, by the way, Indie Media Award honoree, as is antiwar.com. Support Dave, support anti-war. Dave said he's going to be starting to do some stuff on Substack. Hopefully he chooses to do that. So Dave writes
Come
that...
to a Substack newsletter near you.
No, not Rachel. No, we can't have that. No. Okay. U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff has told Arab mediators that the U.S. will not force Israel to end its genocidal war in the Gaza Strip. Womp, womp. The report, which cited Arab officials and has said Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was staunchly refusing to end military operations in Gaza, a position he made clear in public comments as the Israeli military is preparing a major escalation. Again, this was 3 days ago. Not really that much of a surprise, except that Trump could make him do that now, right now. He could literally call up Bibi in the middle of the night and say, you motherfucker, cut the bombs off right now, or we're going to start fucking shooting Israelis. They would stop right now.
That won't happen.
That's right. But that's what it's going to take. It's going to take somebody threatening to kill Israelis and then actually having to do it before they do it. And Israel may kill whoever threatens them. They have Where's Daddy?
Rule of acquisition. The 76. Every once in a while, declare peace. It confuses the hell out of your enemies.
Well, that's what they did. That's exactly what they did in letting that kid out. All right. We in the coming days will be entering with all our strength to complete the process to subdue Hamas, even though he knows that it's not about Hamas. All right. It could be that Hamas will say, pause. We want to release another 10 hostages. Okay, release them. We will receive them. And then after, why would you release them then? But there will not be a situation where we stop the war. There is no war. It's only a slaughter and a massacre. War is when you could potentially get hit and lose, and there's some kind of an equal footing. War is not everybody. One side has all the tanks and all the money, and the other side has none. And right of the travel, passport. Bibi's allowed to fly around the world. Nobody's allowed to leave Gaza. But it's a war. The Times report also cited a source who was present at the meeting with Witkoff that Witkoff held with the family members of Israeli captives held in Gaza last week. Of course, they guaranteed said that it's Bibi's fault that they're not out yet. The source said that Witkoff largely agreed with the position of Arab mediators that Israel's plan to escalate will not be effective. For whom? At another meeting with hostage families this week, Witkoff was pressed on why the U.S. didn't force Israel to stop. We're not the Israeli government. We don't disagree. The Israeli government is a sovereign government. They can't tell us what to do, and we can't tell them what to do. Gaslighting motherfucker. Israel's military operations in Gaza are entirely reliant on U.S. military aid, meaning the U.S. has the ability to pressure Netanyahu to end the slaughter and allow humanitarian aid into Gaza at minimum, which has been under total Israeli blockade again since March 2nd.
Are we the baddies?
According to the Times report, Witkoff is now proposing a deal for a weeks-long ceasefire that lets Israel reload that would release a few captives. Hamas's position is that it's willing to free all the hostages at once in exchange for a permanent ceasefire and a releasing of all of the Palestinian hostages in Israeli prisons, like 10,000 of them or more. Witkoff has insisted that during the week-long truce, the U.S. would ensure, and you know that there's never been a truce. Israel's never once ceased fire. Even during the ceasefire, they killed over 100 Palestinians. The U.S. would ensure Israel entered talks on a lasting deal. But Hamas is unlikely to agree to an agreement without an upfront commitment to a permanent truce. Israel was supposed to end, no, not just a permanent truce, but a permanent exiting of the space. Get the fuck out. Stop stealing our land. They've already moved the line in 1.5 miles all along. We covered that a couple weeks ago. Israel was supposed to enter talks under permanent ceasefire under the deal that was signed in January, but of course they welched on that deal too. So why the fuck would you accept any deal that they made? I can't say fuck Israel enough. All right. And for that, we will definitely not be remonetized by YouTube. And you know what? I don't care. Yeah, my channel is until YouTube figures it out and turns me off. Don't give them I love you, Steve. Thank you. You just gave YouTube $30 out of that 100. I wish you got one of those other ways.
Yep.
Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal,
Cash App,
INN newsletter. All those ways get us at least 90% of the money, if not more. 88% with Ko-fi, with the Substacks.
Comes up on stream.
Substacks. We give up 10% to Substack and then another 2% to Stripe, so it's 12% on Substack.
Substack newsletter.
PayPal, if you do it as friends and family, no fees at all. Ko-fi, it's like 5%. Cash App, no fees at all. YouTube, 30% fee. Rumble Rant, 50% fee. Rumble channel subscription. Rumble channel subscription. Now they're taking even a few percentage points. Allegedly, they used to give you 100%. They stopped doing that. Allegedly, I haven't checked.
Front squad, hold it, sister.
All right, so that's our fuck Israel segment, and now we're up to 11. That's good. We're about halfway through. That's good. Good. I have a lot more to get to. Thank you to everyone who's over on Substack. Good to see you over there at INNnewsletter.com. And we're going to go over to now how the Trump administration is coming after everyday Americans and everyday non-citizens, specifically people who are living here. And that's just the start, because it's going to start there, and then it's going to move to the dissident people, the people that challenge the Trump administration. So here's one. Another man ordered home by a federal judge and the Trump administration refusing again. Now, I'm not familiar with Desert in Bloom as a publication, but I read this article and I thought it was outstanding. All right. So talking about Zikit. Before the barbed wire and prison guards, before the courtroom battles, before his name leaked through a government redaction mistake, he was just Christian. That's how the court referred to him, Christian. No last name, no family history, just a pseudonym meant to protect a 20-year-old Venezuelan man from retaliation while lawyers fought to bring him home. A man who never should have been deported in the first place. God, how many stories have we heard like that already? His real name, as we now know from a leaked court metadata and family testimony, is Daniel Lozano Camargo, and what happened to him isn't just an immigration story. It's another in a series of constitutional violations many Americans watch idly. Here's what happened to him. He was 20 years old. He had tattoos, yes, a rose, a pair of praying hands, the names of his grandmother and the little girl he helped raise. He also had something else, a pending asylum case, a valid work permit, and the full protection of a 2024 court settlement that said he could not be deported until his claim was heard. But the Trump admin sent him to Zikit anyway. They called him Christian in court, a pseudonym to keep him safe. But again, thanks to the metadata left in a redacted ICE document, we now know the truth. Christian is Daniel, and Daniel is sitting in CONTAMINATED, the most violent prison in El Salvador, shaved, shackled, and disappeared.
What country you from?
Daniel came to the U.S. in 2022. At 17, he crossed the border alone. He was processed as an unaccompanied minor. He did everything he was supposed to. He was placed in a shelter, then released to a family. In Houston, he started a car detailing business. He met a woman. He helped her raise her daughter. He applied for asylum. He followed every legal process available to him. He did what he was supposed to.
Right away.
Then came 2 drug charges. And people are allowed to come to this country and declare asylum. That is not illegal.
Uh-huh.
Then came 2 drug charges, both nonviolent, both tied to survival in a new country with no safety net. One in June for a small amount of coke. Then another in November. He wasn't selling and he wasn't hurting anyone. He was snorting coke. Not good, especially the father of a the pseudo father of a child. He was 19 trying to cope. I never did coke, but I did drugs when I was 19. Like many young people, especially those who've experienced trauma, he made mistakes. He took responsibility. We experiment with drugs in our teens and early 20s. A lot of people do. He even accepted a plea deal, served part of a 120-day sentence. He served his time and walked out with plans to move forward. And that's when I seized him. We caught was this in West Virginia, maybe, or Maryland? Even then, Daniel had rights. Under the 2024 federal settlement, individuals like him could not be deported until their asylum cases were resolved. But on March 15th, the government put him on a plane anyway. The same flight as Kilmar Abrego Garcia and Richard Duarte Rodriguez. They didn't send him to Venezuela. They sent him to El Salvador, to CONTAMINATED. Why? U.S. District Judge Stephanie Gallagher ruled that...
Why?
Oh, stop.
Why?
I didn't want to hear that voice.
Why?
Stephanie Gallagher ruled that Daniel's deportation was not only illegal, but it was a blatant defiance of the court's authority. They don't give a fuck. Trump administration is fighting the courts. They want to strip the courts. It's at least every judge that Trump didn't appoint that isn't a Federalist Society Leonard Leo sycophant controlled and owned by corporations. The 2024 settlement agreement, which the federal government had willingly entered into and in which Gallagher herself approved, clearly barred the deportation of unaccompanied minors with pending asylum cases. He came here as an unaccompanied minor, so therefore he's being tried under this asylum case still as an unaccompanied minor. So what we see again is the Trump administration welching on deals that the Biden administration made and tearing it up. This is what he did with the Iran agreement with Obama back in 2017, and he's still 2018, and he's still crying about them violating the JCPOA that he fucking tore up. He loves to welch on the deal and then act like other people still need to be held to it. But the admin didn't just skip to the end. It actively undermined the court's order. Rather than begin the lawful process of returning Daniel to the U.S. because nobody leaves CONTAMINATED alive, the Justice Department submitted an indicative ruling, a preemptive denial of his asylum claim issued outside any formal hearing or process, as if to excuse their refusal to comply. Well, he was going to get denied anyway. Gallagher wasn't having it. She rejected the move unequivocally and reaffirmed her directive. The government must facilitate Daniel's return. That was weeks ago. Not only has the admin refused to act, they've given no evidence that they intend to comply. Gallagher gave them time. She gave them the benefit of the doubt, but they've chosen inaction, and in doing so, they've chosen to ignore the rule of law. All these law and order motherfuckers, right? Daniel's case is not an isolated defense. In the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, another man illegally deported to El Salvador despite standing judicial order barring his removal, the admin has similarly refused to act. even after the Supreme Court upheld a lower court's ruling that his deportation was unlawful, the government has dragged its feet, just like they did with Ramesia Ozturk. And remember that Mahmoud Khalil is still sitting in an ICE detention center in Louisiana. They delayed proceedings. They've ignored deadlines. Judge Paula Ginnis, who oversees that case, has been forced to demand sworn testimony from officials just to determine what, if anything, has been done. And the answer is nothing. This isn't negligence. It's a pattern. One federal judge after another has issued legally binding orders, and one after another, this administration has either ignored them or tried to work around them. This isn't just defiance of a single judge. It's a constitutional crisis playing out in silence. All right. And this was, by the way, part of Project 2025 that all the shitlibs had their hair on fire about. This was a plan. Daniel is still in CONTAMINATED, still waiting. So is Richard. Kilmore is still in another prison. And so were hundreds of other innocent men.
I always felt like that Project 2025 thing was like the same thing when they took the Romney plan, you know, Romney Care.
Yeah, yes,
like
they
the
would
same
have
thing.
watered.
The Democrats
Yes.
would have done the same
watered
shit.
down Project
It just would have been
2025.
called something different.
Well, they were going to incorporate parts of it into the Harris administration anyway. We knew that was going to happen for sure. But we're not just under assault there. I got another one from my buddy Arturo Dominguez over at Decolonized Journalism. As DHS grows more violent, has it reached the point of no return? We now have brown shirts living among us. Violent escalations are occurring across the country, and government officials, along with women and children, are being targeted. They don't give a fuck. New brown shirt just dropped. There it is. After many non-citizens have been kidnapped off the street and detained for exercising their constitutionally protected rights, such as free speech or freedom of expression via their tattoos or the clothes they wear, and hundreds being renditioned to inhumane prisons in other countries like we just talked about, now the threat of suspending habeas corpus, which we've done in 2012, thank you, Obama, and sending migrants to places like Libya, which is in the middle of a civil war, the administration's lawlessness is growing exponentially because they realize nobody's going to stop them. From arresting judges and threatening sheriff's departments and mayors across the country to filing complaints against states for not participating in mass deportations the way Trump admin feels they should, Trump officials aren't just blurring the line between the separation of powers, they're also challenging the strength of the judiciary by contesting the Constitution and local, state, and federal laws. Stephen Miller's a douchebag. Yes, we know that. He's a fascist Nazi. Yes, yes, yes. With the recent arrest of a mayor, along with using various federal agencies such as the DEA, the ATF, the U.S. Marshal Service, among others, to conduct raids alongside ICE, as well as the Michigan Attorney General's office, which has always operated on the edge of illegality. The local law enforcement-assisted escalation in aggression and violence has seemingly reached a point of no return. No surprise. On Friday, we saw Baz, what's his name, the mayor of Newark, arrested after demanding access to a recently opened ICE detention facility owned by the private prison company Geo Group in Newark. According to Mayor Ras Baraka, that's his name, Ras Baraka, the building, a former halfway house called Delaney Hall, is operating without proper permitting and inspections, claimed DHS denies, but prompted his action nonetheless. Show the receipts, motherfuckers. In April, Mayor Baraka sued to block the facilities open, but that didn't happen, citing that Geo Group had failed to acquire the needed construction permits and refused local inspections, violating city and state laws. Again, who's stopping them? As previously reported, Geo Group signed a 15-year contract worth over $1 billion to house as many as 1,000 migrants for extended periods. Attempts to access the facility were partially motivated by ensuring the detention center wasn't overcrowded, as many are. So naturally, they're going to block you from getting in and confirming that they are certainly overcrowded.
I mean, imagine giving a contractor, like, go back up. How much is that?
$1 billion.
$1 billion. Okay, give you the contractor $1 billion. You've got to you've got to make a house that can house 1,000 people for extended periods. You know, like what? Okay.
No, not one. Oh no, it can be multiple facilities. It's not even saying that that was just this for this one contract.
Right.
All right. That's for all of ICE. So today, the city of Newark is filing a complaint with Essex County Superior Court because ICE has opened their Delaney Hall facility without following proper building safety protocols. They failed to give city officials access to conduct inspections required under municipal ordinances and state code. This violates city and state law. They just don't give a shit. You're going to have to send the cops and somebody in there to fight the feds. Good luck. Baraka's arrest occurred as 3 members of Congress were planning an oversight visit to the already controversial facility. The New Jersey delegation of lawmakers consisted of Reps Robert Menendez, that's not Bingo Bob, the Egypt corrupt guy that just resigned out of Congress. All right, LaMonica Ivor,
Congress,
and Bonnie Watson Coleman. They're all like representing Essex County in the Newark area.
Yeah. The New Jersey Devils. We got it.
As members of Congress, they cannot be denied access to an ICE detention facility. And as they were entering, Homeland Security alleges that Mayor Baraka tried to force his way in a claim rebuked and debunked by video evidence. Then they pushed her. This didn't stop Homeland Security Assistant Secretary from immediately releasing a statement portraying a much different narrative than what occurred. What a shock. Brown shirt's gonna brown shirt.
Oh, did they Photoshop his hands? And
she accused the lawmakers of storming the facility. Right-wing social media echoed her words and exploded with wild accusations of assaults on several law enforcement officers, and they're going to serve and arrest Congress.
A pepper, even.
Right, which is a claim not initially made by any federal agency, including DHS, until Saturday. Quote, members of Congress storming into a detention facility goes beyond the bizarre Politico stunt and puts the safety of our law enforcement agents and detainees at risk. I want the fucking cameras in there. Let the cameras in. Members of Congress are not above the law. No, members of DHS apparently are, because they don't have to follow state regulation, city ordinances, inspections, or anything else. Cannot illegally break into detention facilities. It's not a legal detention facility, asshole. That's the argument.
No one is above the law.
Had these members requested a tour, we would have facilitated a tour of the facility, completely homogenized to no area that they might actually want to see. This is an evolving situation. Somebody needs to fire that motherfucker, or at least lock him up for now preventing Congress from entering the facility. McLaughlin's reactionary response came before video evidence surfaced online, and it would have been benefited her to wait, take a breath, and see what happens. Instead, she exposed how the administration operates like a far-right social media does. Okay, much like claiming mass shooters are trans immigrants before any facts are known, the Trump camp tries to get out in front of a story and develop a narrative that their base can feed off of and spread across the internet. True or not? Most likely not. But like every other case...
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom...
Pretty much. But like in every other case, the truth was exposed. Except this time, as videos of the altercation began to surface almost immediately after the incident, the rebuke came with a bang. Despite this, DHS made no corrections, nor is it recanted the outlandish claims that McLaughlin continues to make. They have their narrative and they're sticking to it. Forget what the tape shows. Her language shows...
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
100%. It was alternative facts was Kellyanne Conway's thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she caught me on the counter.
It wasn't me.
She even caught me on camera.
It wasn't me. All right. The lawmakers had a right to be there. Okay, they planned to take this fictional tale of painting the lawmakers who had a right to be there, and after arresting the mayor of the largest city in New Jersey, as if they were operating outside the law, to criminalize them in the public's eye. Again, Mayor Baraka, why haven't you sent anyone in to arrest the people at the ICE facility for violating the city laws and for operating a facility illegally? After the altercation, Representative Robert Menendez held a press conference and described what took place. His statement was backed by video evidence seen across social media. Soon after, the far-right narrative began to change. However, the escalatory language remained the same on social media, accusing Democrat lawmakers and the Newark mayor of assaulting police, something that did not occur, and violating various laws that have no bearing on the situation. All right.
How dare you, Mayor Baraka Waka Flocka Flame?
What does have bearing, again, it's stupid because he should have locked up the people in the facility and it should never have opened in the first place. Despite multiple protesters being present, around 10 DHS agents emerged from the facility to detain only Baraka for trespassing, suggesting that he was targeted. He also wasn't a member of Congress who was legally allowed to be there. No one else in the crowd was charged. The mayor denies being on the property after being told to step back. And according to the video, it appears that he was not on the detention center's property when apprehended. Local organizer Viri Martinez told Guardian there was yelling and pushing. Then the officers swarmed Baraka. They threw one of the organizers to the ground. They put Baraka in handcuffs and put him in an unmarked car. This is a mayor. Even so, acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina Habba, says Baraka ignored warnings from Homeland Security investigations agents to leave the property, which videos show he did. Now it appears Homeland Security is looking to file charges on the 3 New Jersey representatives, alleging that they were responsible for assaulting Homeland Security investigations and ICE agents, and even alleging that a female agent was body slammed by the lawmakers. They're unconscionable. For reference, 2 of the lawmakers are women, and one of those women is 80 years old. On Saturday, McLaughlin claimed on CNN that more arrests were coming. Hopefully her being arrested was coming. And DHS had body camera footage of those members of Congress assaulting those ICE enforcement officers, including, quote unquote, the body slamming of a female ICE officer. Andrew Solander at Axios later confirmed that the investigations into the lawmakers are underway. Release the tapes. I want to see. I guarantee you we'll never see those tapes. Guaranteed. Meanwhile, other dangerous escalations by ICE and other federal agencies working alongside ICE, including local cops who are providing support for ICE raids, have grown more forceful with each passing day. Last week, however, those escalations grew more aggressive, more violent, and have crossed many legal boundaries, from obscuring the separation of powers to arresting judges, mayors, and even threatening to arrest officials who don't fully work with ICE. Wait, what? Yeah. In Worcester, Mass., ICE tried taking a Brazilian family into custody, and when neighbors began to question them after they wouldn't identify themselves, the situation grew tense as many members of the community tried to push back against them. When asked to show a warrant for arrest, the agents refused and instead enlisted local police to assist them. Quote, my understanding was that it was a mother and 2 daughters, one of whom had a little baby in her arms, a 1-month-old baby. The father's already been taken, so the mother's now going to get taken and leave these 2 behind with the 2 daughters behind, one of whom just had a baby? It was a moment of a lot of anguish, she continued. At some point, you just say, this child has to go to the bathroom. We're going. Once police arrived, the situation grew more tense and aggressive. What a surprise, because cops only escalate the problem, leading police to hold a teenage girl on the ground with her face pressed into the pavement while handcuffing her and arresting another woman. The incident left the community outraged, like so many others across the country, because ICE routinely skirts the law to conduct its operations. Like we said, we have brown shirts that are operating under their own set of rules, which are none. Its agents are further corrupting agents from myriad agencies and putting the general public at greater risk. Because once you're attached to ICE and once you're doing it on behalf of ICE, you'll get away with whatever the fuck you want.
Videos of violent ICE arrests are spreading across the country 3 months into Donald Trump's second term. Just this week in Massachusetts, several ICE actions went viral on social media. In Newton on Monday, 2 men were forced out of a car as agents smashed in the windows. 1 man was dragged out and tackled by 5 agents. And in Worcester on Thursday, chaos erupted as ICE arrested a woman, and Worcester police arrested 2 others after a crowd formed to challenge the ICE arrest. Worcester police said in a statement that they responded to preserve the peace and prevent anyone from being injured. Local police in Massachusetts are required to report the names of those arrested. But because ICE typically does not, it can be difficult to get information unless the detainee has a lawyer. ICE's secrecy fuels claims that agents are disappearing people with no due process, even in cases when those arrested face criminal charges. One of the men arrested on the Watertown-Newton line this week had faced charges related to abuse allegations. But immigration lawyers say many people arrested often have no records.
I fear that this country is becoming a police state, that folks have their basic constitutional rights are being trampled. It's a terrifying vision of the road that Trump is taking us down.
ICE did not respond to requests for comment, but the Trump administration says it's going after the worst criminals while arresting so-called collaterals.
They're really bad.
Illegally. Civil rights experts are calling for greater transparency.
That's Yoda on
They say
YouTube's
withholding information
Smoke More the
makes it
Weeds.
easier to deport people.
Awful. Awful. That's WBUR. We actually brought the WBUR article about Ramesha Ozturk last week. They seem to be doing really good work lately, too. And yet it gets worse. In Oxnard, California, ICE agents took a father into custody in a convenience store parking lot and left his children in his vehicle abandoned. Child endangerment. Why isn't anybody charging the ICE agents and arresting them for child endangerment? Because they covered their faces? I don't know. I would arrest everybody at the facility that father was taken to. These people have no fucking balls. These actions are happening several times a day all over the nation after we've seen agents smash people's car windows, raid the wrong house intentionally, and rob a family, and take people's children from them as they're being deported back to their home countries, while also deporting U.S. citizen children despite being protected by U.S. law. The next logical step for a tyrannical government is to disappear U.S. citizens for opposing Trump's policies, which is already starting to happen, by the way. I've heard of the one in Arizona that got sent to CONTAMINATED, a guy from Houston. An administration that willingly lies to hundreds of millions of people is absolutely dangerous, especially considering every time they're caught, they escalate. They double down. The clear motivation here is silencing opposing voices, including lawmakers and elected officials on every level. When it doesn't work, the administration pushes harder by inventing stories and trying to charge people criminally based on these delusional tales. If you didn't think they'd come after U.S. citizens, as many have warned, take note. This is precisely how they'll do it. If they can go after mayors and members of Congress, what's going to make anyone think they won't come after any of us? Nearly every federal law enforcement agency, along with local and state cops, is participating in this massive government overreach. It's like an Order 66. That should terrify everyone. Support Arturo, decolonize journalism, over on Substack, extremearturo.substack.com. Give him a monthly subscription. Dude's doing great work lately. Killer. Also writes for Unicorn Riot and other independent publications. A true independent. And he's from Jersey, I found out this week. And we're about the same age. Good dude. speaks fluent Spanish, talks with the people in the facilities, has family of all different shapes, sizes, and colors, really has a perspective that we need. Well, if YouTube decides to kiss the Trump administration's ass, they certainly won't remonetize us for that. So if you're able to, and it means, please support the independent media you want to see. Support INN. Throw us a couple bucks over on ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. Best way to do it. Cash App, $Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. And at INNnewsletter.com or over at IndieMediaToday.com. That's my newsletter where you see the thing above my head. All right. Okay. I got one more article / set of stories about media under assault, and then we got a lightning round. So it's going to be probably 12:15 before we get done here. What's up, everybody? Vicky, good to see you. You're really here. I believe that. I believe you're really here. Not really. Really. You are. All right. This one really got me upset. And I don't even really subscribe to this publication much. But again, it's another one of these canaries in the coal mine that really scares the fuck out of me. This is the second time in the last 6 months now that I've seen an outlet or a publication exit a country, and now one that's completely closing because of the censorship and anti-terrorism crackdown rules on dissident media in European countries. And I'm worried it's going to spread here, because Europe is usually a bellwether of what happens here as far as authoritarianism. All right. Possum King, Trump's bill has advanced, possibly adding $5.2 trillion to the debt. True. And it probably will. He's only going to give a giveaway to his donors and supporters while we all take the hit and the haircut. But this one really pissed me off. This is Red Media out of Germany. Now, Red Media has been under assault for a long time, but they've decided that they're closing. Enough is enough. Amid mounting repression and direct threats to our team's safety, including danger to their lives, Red Media can no longer operate. So they made a full press statement available in multiple language, which we can read. They also did it in tweet format. So I'm going to put up the tweets. No, not in German, in English. All right. Oh, good. We can go right to it from there. Amid mounting repression and direct threats to our team's safety. Let me get rid of that. Thank you. Amid mounting repression and direct threats to our team's safety, including danger to their lives, Red Media, a project of Istanbul-based AFA Media, AS, can no longer operate. The current campaign against Red Media is a troubling strategy of modern disinformation perpetrated by the ruling class and its lackeys. At its core is the deliberate use of unfounded accusations amplified in a circular, constantly repeating process by media outlets and political actors and falsely presented as facts. Does that sound a lot like what Arturo just talked about in the last story? With ICE and DHS and Trump administration fabricating stories to push narratives? This campaign aims to intimidate, criminalize, and ultimately silence Red Media through lawsuits and media repression, with the calculation of forcing a criminal conviction through fabricated allegations and media pressure. The safety of our contributors, supporters, and followers is no longer guaranteed. Not like it ever really was. This is not a voluntary decision. It's the result of a coordinated crackdown led by the German government, backed by the EU, and carried out by German media outlets, unions, and foundations. It's also backed by Israel. It's repressive, unlawful, and dangerous. As we've warned, today we are the target, tomorrow it will be you. Meaning us. What we are witnessing is global normalization of repression, where speaking out against genocide is being systematically criminalized. Red Media was never the real threat. Our reach was. In just the first 9 months of 2024, we surpassed 483 million views. Well, they certainly never threw any our way, I'll tell you that much. What they fear are growing defiant voices against racism, fascism, apartheid, genocide, and imperialism. Check, 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 right here. We're proud of what we built and proud to be silenced for telling the truth. That's a weird flex, but okay. We refuse to look away from live-streamed genocide. We stood alone. We stood firm, but we were never alone. This was only possible because of all of you, those who take to the streets and speak out daily despite state and institutional violence and repression and pay the highest price. We remain firmly committed to the Palestinian people's demand for one democratic state where all communities can live together in peace, the only solution for Palestine. We expect even more repression and state violence against Red Media and its supporters. Our Twitter and Telegram channels will remain active, voluntarily run, to document the continued criminalization of Red Media and others. We will update you on these channels about the repression against us. To everyone who stood with us, thank you. This is not defeat. As Palestinian revolutionary George Habash once said, quote, "As long as you are still fighting in defense of your dignity and for your occupied land, all is well." We've already won. We informed, trained, and inspired people across the globe. Now it's your turn to go further. Long live the struggle against imperialism, colonialism, apartheid, and all oppression. Free Palestine. Spread our statement and add your voice opposing the repression against Red Media and other dissenting voices, and the full press release is here at the Red Stream. All right. And this goes into a lot more detail about the letter that they received from the German police, that over the past months, we've been accused of instigating pro-Palestine protests in Germany, instigating the Humboldt County, Berlin occupation by pro-Palestinian activists, giving terrorists a platform, referring to our interviews with major relevant political actors in the Middle East, being a continuation of Redfish, which they were not, starting an alleged campaign against a journalist just by listing his journalistic background. Again, these accusations are not just fabricated. They're part of a broader strategy. Critical, dissident media like Red Media are to be defamed, criminalized, and ultimately dismantled. Our journalistic work is systematically distorted, and our positions are deliberately misrepresented. What we are experiencing is an orchestrated repression legitimized by a media-manufactured myth of threat. It is an attack on independent journalism and on every voice that challenges the official narrative. All right, and they go into specifically, this is again a much longer article about the misery of German journalism and how they've been cracking down on all the media. All right. The very same individuals who are now attacking us have remained silent, have downplayed or outright justified the killing of over 200 Palestinian journalists by the Israeli state over the past year and a half, yet are now expressing outrage over a factually correct social media post about a journalist imposed by the German newspaper Taz, Nicholas Potter. Potter's reporting aligns politically with the right, yet he presents himself as a leftist and is celebrated by supposedly left-wing newspapers, while at the same time writing for conservative ones, including the Jerusalem Post, a newspaper that often reads like a mouthpiece of the Israeli government. So their post about Nicholas Potter contained no falsehoods. All of it was based on information they took either from his own website or from the platforms, newspapers, and institutions he works or has worked for. It was a factual listing of his journalistic background. It's absurd that they're expected to apologize for this and further to be punished for it. Oh, man, I'm writing an expose on a pseudo-journalist right now, and hopefully something like this doesn't happen to us. Despite accusations of spreading misinformation, no one has presented any evidence to substantiate these claims. 2 months ago, on March 17th, in Taz, Nicholas Potter claimed, quote, the campaign is coordinated. It was launched by the Russia-affiliated portal Red, the successor to RT's Redfish project. Without providing a single piece of evidence. They didn't provide evidence that Red is an extension of Redfish, because they're not. These statements are defamatory, false, and criminalizing. Through deliberate distortion, these motherfuckers. It's German scum. Through deliberate distortion and a reversal of perpetrator and victim roles, there is an attempt to construct a so-called Kremlin radical left Palestinian conspiracy against supposedly professional journalists in Germany. Give me a motherfucking break. All right? The Kremlin is making deals with Netanyahu. Come on. So this is the story about Nicholas Potter. So you can check that out. They posted up for all to see. We explicitly distance ourselves from any threats, insults, or defamation against journalists. As targets of such campaigns initiated by German media figures, union representatives, and NGOs, we know all too well what that looks like. Articles and posts of this exact nature were published by Nicholas Potter, Taz, the German state propaganda newspaper Tagesspiegel, and the Axel Springer Media Group, which includes Business Insider, by the way, trade union officials, among others, while all of the above now cry foul over supposed attacks and campaigns against them. We've called on all those who spread these false claims as facts to disclose whether they're actually checked and verify these allegations before publishing them. We reached out to editorial offices, journalists, even Reporters Without Borders Germany. To this day, no one has responded or provided evidence of their verification practices. Okay? And there is... Where did I lost my place there? Practices. Somewhere. I don't know. I lost it. All right.
Do it live!
Fuck it. Disinformation as a strategy of delegitimization. Again, they're trying to put out a narrative with this Redfish thing that Red Media was a successor to the Russian-funded digital media platform Redfish without a shred of concrete evidence and based solely on the professional connections of a few individuals. This speculation was later repeated as fact in an official statement by Antony Blinken. We covered that over the summer when they got them taken down or declared as a hostile agency, directly citing Tagesspiegel as the source, even though the source material itself contained no evidence. Then Tagesspiegel euphorically covered Blinken's statement. Their original unsubstantiated claim had been picked up and recycled into fact by the simple act of it being uttered from the lips of one of the most powerful politicians in the world, who's complicit for the genocide in Gaza himself. This reminds me of the Bush administration pushing the weapons of mass destruction through Linda Miller or Judith Miller at the New York Times, and then saying, well, wait, Judith Miller at the New York Times said it. It must be true because they fed it to her. Same thing. Tagesspiegel, it must be true because you fed it to Blinken. But still, you provided no evidence. That's an original baseless assumption.
Stupid shit.
Right? An original assumption, baseless, gains apparent credibility through political repetition. This feedback loop where speculation references its own media coverage as proof is a classic method of discursive escalation. This is professional disinformation, just like it was in Iraq. The mechanism follows a clear pattern. An unsubstantiated assumption is made public, political or journalistic institutions pick it up and spread it, and the original source of the claim then uses the response to reframe the assumptions as a confirmed fact, used as well by Reporters Without Borders Germany. This manipulation serves multiple purposes. 1, to publicly discredit critical media actors. 2, to strip them of institutional credibility and to make them legally vulnerable. At the same time, it distracts from and undermines the actual work and investigations that critical media professionals are engaged in, particularly when it comes to hot-button topics such as Palestinian solidarity or scrutiny of NATO's malignant role in the world today, or its criminal role in the Ukraine war, in the proxy war against Russia. Under the guise of journalism and the fight against disinformation, there's a growing impression that parts of the media and some journalists themselves have become actors in the German state's information warfare, similar to what can be observed with media figures in Russia or the United States. State media, literally. What's especially dangerous is that many journalists no longer question the original source of such information. The allegation is adopted, amplified, and with each uncritical repetition, it's cemented in the public perception as truth, because perception is reality. And if nobody's correcting the record, that's what they're going to perceive as the reality until they find out otherwise. This strategy exploits journalism's credibility in order to undermine it. It claims to fight disinformation while deploying its very mechanisms. Where's Nina Jankowicz? I'll bet she's somewhere involved in all this shit. This same strategy is used to justify the crimes committed against the Palestinian people in Gaza, by the way. We asked all those who repeated the falsehoods as facts to show us whether they had actually fact-checked these allegations and verified them before publishing, but that just embarrasses them. We asked newspapers, journalists, again, even Reporters Without Borders Germany. None of them have provided any proof or insight into their verification process to this day because they don't have one. They're taking the state narrative. Good imperialist, bad imperialist. This is another central tactic of the German media's smear campaign, is the repeated baseless claim that we are either a continuation of Redfish or a Russian disinformation outlet. Okay, these allegations are not just false, they are strategic. They aim to do several things. Criminalize legitimate pro-Palestinian voices by spinning a conspiracy narrative that ties us to Russia, where they have sanctions against, so it makes it really easy to hold them accountable. Justify repression, arrest, prosecution, or even sanctions against Red Media and its members. They can attack dissenting voices and propagate the idea that Western imperialism is better than Russian imperialism. It's all imperialism. And they can create an atmosphere where journalists have to censor themselves due to fear of repression or criminal charges, which they are doing in Germany regularly. None of the outlets pushing this narrative have asked us about our stance on Russia, the war in Ukraine, or NATO. Not one, even though we invited them to do so. This omission is deliberate because our actual position would dismantle their story and disinformation strategy. Redfish was funded by Ruptly, a Russian company based in Germany. This information is not the result of investigative journalism. On the contrary, it was openly communicated on Redfish's website and was not part of any concealment tactic. We've repeatedly made our position clear, and I don't know if I agree with it, but okay. Russia is an imperialist power pursuing its own geopolitical interests like the US, China, EU, and NATO. We reject all... I didn't hear that, whatever that is.
China.
Yeah. We reject all their policies and military actions. We have publicly criticized the invasion of Ukraine and reported on opposition figures being arrested and made clear in our reporting that this is a war, that this war is a war between two imperialist blocs. Still, German media ignores these facts. Instead, they rely on propaganda tactics that echo the disinformation playbooks of darker times. This is not journalism, it's criminal behavior. These facts are systemically ignored by German media because they're told to. Instead, discrediting methods are used that have more in common with propaganda than journalism, which is what media is today. Through the constant repetition of unsubstantiated allegations, an artificial evidentiary framework is constructed, a classic disinformation tactic. Let us be clear, we do take a side in this war. We stand with the people. We stand with every voice calling for an end to the violence. We stand with those in Ukraine and Russia and across the world who resist imperialism. those who suffer, those who mourn, those who dare to dissent. We stand with those paying the price for it, working class people in Ukraine and Russia and everywhere else. We will take legal action against each journalist, outlet, foundation, trade union, and their representatives involved in spreading this disinformation campaign. We hold you accountable for any type of repression against Red Media and its members.
Our enemies are all those in league with imperialism.
And there's a lot more here.
The big landlord class and the reactionary section of the intelligentsia attached to them.
Again, I read this part. This is what came out of those tweets. All right. I want to move on because it's not just red. But this is also happening in the UK to BitChute in a different way. The UK has been prosecuting platforms, and they want platforms to open themselves up to censorship and censoring channels that the government deems are violating the law, even though there may not be a due process to do so. And so therefore, BitChute is exiting the UK. They're still going to exist elsewhere. Oh, before we do that, here's something that happened over at Nakba Day over in Germany. All right, a 28-second video showcasing the unyielding allyship and shared values of Germany and Israel. Let's watch this.
As old as time.
Nice. Beatdowns to people that are face down on their backs. But like I said, we got Ray from BitChute.
If only
here.
cops would learn pain compliance, don't do shit.
I want to bring what Ray had to say here because he talks about BitChute under assault.
BitChute has officially left the UK, not because we wanted to, but because it was the right thing to do. The UK's Online Safety Act forces platforms into becoming instruments of censorship and surveillance. These measures represent one of the most oppressive regulatory overreaches in the digital age. And if we do not resist now, this precedent will spread. This is our red line. By remaining in the UK, we would have not only legitimised this regime, but encouraged other governments to follow suit. The stakes are too high. This is not just about one law or one country. It's about whether the internet remains free or becomes a tool of state control. We will not participate in the surveillance of our users. We will not enforce government-mandated censorship. And we call on every platform that values free speech to take the same stand. If enough companies refuse to take part in this censorship, the UK government will have no choice but to back down. This is a fight for the future of the internet. If you believe in it, share this message. Let the UK know you won't surrender your voice.
Fuck Keir Starmer. And by the way,
the press is free.
Well, not in the UK, but let's remember what this is all being directed at, or who is orchestrating and directing all of this, because it is exposing their genocide. Israel. This is all because of Israel. What Germany is doing is because of Israel. What the UK is doing is because of Israel. What the Trump administration is doing is because of Israel. Is that Tim Dillon with an Irish accent? Oh, dude, that's cold. That's cold. And Tim Dillon is way fatter and way gayer than Ray. We are live on BitChute, by the way, bitchute.com/channel/Indie News Network, all one word. Leave it alone, man. BitChute. It's a bit. BitTorrent. BitChute. A shoot down the BitTorrent. Okay?
Watch your profanity.
And YouTube has bent the knee, but we will not. So we need your help. And to help fund the media you want to see, Red's no longer around. We're still here. So Cash App, $Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, or at INNnewsletter.com, where we are live right now. You can go watch us live at INN Newsletter. Zoe, good to see you over on the Substacks if you're still over there. Real Kill Medical Cult. Go check that out Thursday nights on the AM Wake Up channel. New Prisoners, bunch of different channels. Go look her up. She's over on Telegram as well. Oh man. I'm a little wiped out. All right. 11:55. Good. I got lightning round. We're going to get through these quick. All right. Kyle Anzalone, another Indie Media Award honoree from Anti-War and Libertarian Institute. U.S. to spend $1 trillion on nuclear weapons over the next decade. Insane. This is insane. I'll put the link in the chat. You'll have in the description. You'll have to take a look at that. Next, I wanted to mention, earlier on I talked about sludge and what good work David Moore and Donnie are doing. This one was another really important article that I probably should have brought for the show, but it didn't really fit with the narrative, with where I was going tonight. Lutnick's firm, that's Cantor Fitzgerald, bought Bitcoin company stock. That's MicroStrategy. I don't know if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, we covered Michael Saylor and talked about what a Ponzi his company stock is and why he's entering into debt that he can never possibly service. And the whole thing's going to collapse in probably 5 to 7 years at most. All right. Now, Cantor Fitzgerald is buying into Strategy. They renamed the company from MicroStrategy to just Strategy. They get rid of the micro. All right. They're buying more Bitcoin through Strategy now. I love they're calling it Strategy.
Have a good time with your Bitcoin, your crypto, and everything else that you're playing with.
Stupid. They're putting all of this money into a company that's now sucking all the liquid cash out that's being put in, paying himself out. You got to watch the story. And that was another sludge story about Michael Saylor and Strategy. So again, support Sludge. They're doing good work. I got one more from Sludge, but wow, this one, I had to throw this in. Our buddy Jeremy Ward, brother, friend of the show, posted this up from Jake Johnson at Common Dreams, a headline. Under cover of night, the GOP unveils a plan to kick over 8 million people off of Medicaid, put work requirements in, eliminate all kinds of subsidies and benefits that benefits literally 1 in 5 Americans so they can send more money to Israel and overfund the cops and rebuild Alcatraz like the fucking dumbass wants to do. We covered that last week. Okay. Next, another sludge article from David Moore at P Politics on Twitter. Peter Thiel ally in line to oversee drug deregulation. Now, this was over a month ago, but we've been talking about the dangerousness of Peter Thiel and his infiltration into our government, his tangled web of connections everywhere, where he's got all kinds of control with a phone call and can make all kinds of shit happen. This guy's name is Jim O'Neill. Okay? Trump's picked to be Deputy Secretary of Human Health and Human Services under Booby Kennedy, criticized the FDA's drug approval process as overly cautious while directing a Thiel-funded VC firm that invests in biotech. Naturally. So check that out. Again, links will be in the description. This is a very long article, and it's not the first time that ProPublica has talked about this "we buy ugly houses." I'm sure you've probably seen those billboards around the country. But
it's free real estate.
It's far from free real estate. This was a very long article, but incalculable damage, how a "we buy ugly houses" franchise left a trail of financial wreckage across Texas. So those are franchises, those billboards that you saw, that some company was licensing out the rights to make those billboards and to get people to sell their houses on the cheap because they were ugly. And then figure out what to do with them. ProPublica, by the way, won a Pulitzer Prize for journalism, independent journalism, recently. Shout out to ProPublica, doing a good job. All right, that wasn't so bad. That got through the lightning round. That was a real lightning round. Lightning round, lightning round, lightning round. Now, we got a couple other housekeeping things, and then we'll get out of here and do boats in about 15 minutes. Our friend Shanda got her PET scan. Thankfully, no new tumors found. Looks like the cancer has been receding, and they have not found any more cancer in her. Thank God. But she still needs our help. She needs funding. She's got a $5,000 goal on her GoFundMe. Over 1,000 raised so far. We've contributed here at INN. Thank you for helping us.
It's not a tumor.
No, not in this case. It's not. It was arthritis, allegedly. But one where there is a tumor is Anna Marie Zygmunt Smith, Andrew's daughter, who's here on the left. She's been going through blindness due to brain tumors. And they have raised over almost $6,000 already. They raised the goal up to $6,500. Anything anybody can do to help. She's learning Braille and to walk with a cane now. And this is intensive. Again, 5 days a week, 6.5 weeks of treatments to try to stop the cancer and to give her some kind of a normal life. So anything you can do to help our brother Andrew out. Again, Andrew's one of the best of us. He was one of the hosts of Action for Assange, one of the co-founders of Action for Assange. When the show stopped running at one point, he and another person decided to continue doing it themselves. And man, I remember he famously went to a town meeting in a bowler hat and scared the shit out of all his local officials and made the newspaper. Andrew's a G, man. He's one of us. I referenced earlier, I did a one-on-one this week with 7C's independent researcher. We talked about some of these narrative networks that are run by Michael Flynn, that are run by Jordan Peterson, and all the shadowy figures that are connected to them, how they get funding, how they push propaganda out, who they have convenient relationships with, and it starts to help you put a picture together of how all this stuff gets put out and coordinated. Really important to understand. So by all means, that will be in the description. Check out the one-on-one on INNnewsletter.com. That was put out. It's as a live stream, so it's on all of our video channels. It's on YouTube, it's on Rumble, but we also put it out as a podcast and Substack post at INN Newsletter. And that's where I'm showing you that right here. One more thing, we are live over at IndieNewsNow.com. Like I said, we've been making updates and changes. We've now added categories to IndieNewsNow.com. So if you want to just see the articles or just go to the podcasts, you can now get to this section, which will focus on Substacks that are and Rumbles that are just podcasts. Scott Horton Show, for example. All right. JB, the Independent Review, just a few, to name a few. All right. And then there's the videos tab where we're working on bringing Rumble videos and Odyssey videos into the mix. Okay. And then, of course, like I said, our Watch Live tab where you can watch this show and the next show, Boat Smashing and Other Boats, and every INN show live on this thing, platform free, and chat using this Discord if you want to. All right. All right, one other thing. Oh, I wrote an article this morning. So that's at Indie Media Today, and this was inspired by two people. Number one, our friend Michael Ginsberg from Actionable Truth and Actions over on Substack. Go follow him there. And by our friend Kit Cabello over at Hardlens Media. Everybody knows and loves Kit. Kit messaged me the other day, and he's like, hey, how do I back up my Patreon and Substack subscribers? Because just in case, that's a good question, and I really appreciate you asking. Let me Google that for you. Not really, but let me help you. And he knows that I'm routinely in these platforms, so I know where to do that. So I put together a little article about how and why you need to be exporting your subscriber list, because these platforms can turn us off. But luckily, Patreon and Substack allow you the ability to export your lists, and I show how here. So one more time, I'm going to ask y'all to help fund the media you want to see. Please. Okay, over at Cash App, $Indie News Network, co-v.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, and INNnewsletter.com or IndieMediaToday.com. All those are great places to support independent media. Thank you again so much to everyone who supported and gave tonight. Steve R., that was huge over on my YouTube channel. Thank you. That's actually going to allow me to cash out and get me over that $100 minimum threshold. So that was really big. Thank you. That was mass. Okay. Yes, Raw Meat Herd. We are weed smoking hippies and proud to be that. Cannabis legal in most states now, and especially in the one I live in. So appreciate that. Yona, good for you. Thank you. Appreciate you too. Thanks for all the countless hours and work, Indian homies. Yeah, you kick ass. Go check out Yona over on AM Wake Up channel. He's on a bunch of different channels, but they've got he plays music. He does all kinds of cool stuff. Check out our friend Yona. Yeah, I see Chris H. Are you guys going to put the links in the description? Because people always say they will and never do. I do. Every week, if you go to Indie Media Today and you go to the original live stream alert post, I go back in and I add it. Plus, when I make the clips, I put the original links in the clips. Let me actually show you one of those right here real quick. If I go to last week's, for example, if you go to Indie Media Today and you go to the How Did We Miss That live stream, you can click right here. That's tonight, so it won't have the links in yet. But this one from last week, here's the original stream. Here are the stories and every link to everything that we do. To everything that we share, every video we share, every tweet we share, everything. I think it's really important. And shout out to Ryan Christian of The Last American Vagabond. Oh, crap. I'm not showing it to anybody. Here. That would help. So, again, let's go to IndieMediaToday.com. That's my Substack. Scroll down to the How Did We Miss That live stream section where you see these thumbnails here. All right. That's always what we'll use for the live show. And then click on any one of those articles that isn't tonight's article. And again, you will see all of the links embedded or linked directly to their website so that you'll be able to see and cross-reference everything and share what we shared, because we are here to amplify independent media. The whole reason why we started doing this in the first place was to amplify independent media. And a lot of places don't hold to that. We vow to, and I will always do that. You have that guarantee from me. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. Okay, all right, let me do that again. Support independent media, kids, because we need it more than ever. We're going to get ready for boats, and I love you, and have a good night, fam. What? You're muted. You're muted.
You're muted. How dare you?
What?
Good night, fam. Keep listening to what boats have to tell you.
Nope. Nope.
No?
No.
Why?
Why are you turning things off yet?
Ciao, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say?
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say?